Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette Kuntze. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette, and my guest today is Louise Hallam. She is a leadership coach and spiritual mentor who connects women leaders to themselves and helps them to lead with soul confidence without stress and struggle. So welcome, Louise. I'm happy to have you here today on my show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I'm really curious. You are helping women that it sounds like they are awakened. They already found something that is inside of them that wants to come out. Can you describe a little bit, who are these women? How do they know that they are right in the position that they want to become these kind of leaders?
I think we can all recognise that there's been quite a lot of turbulence over the last year with what's been happening, and I think those of us that are maybe more aware of what's been happening know that has been awakening a lot of people. So a lot of people who are maybe not aware of their own purpose and destiny are now much more curious. And the women that I work with are probably, they may be going along happily in life, or they think they are, but there's something that they've realised that is out of sync, or something's passing them by. They're missing something. And I would call this when you realise that you've disconnected. So you realise that at some point you've become separated, and you've become separated from yourself and the life that you were meant to live, and you found yourself living a completely different way of life, in a different job, and almost like a light bulb moment. And this is, I think, happening for more and more people in life, but also in leadership. And maybe the way that they've been leading is not the way that they were born to lead, and it also isn't the way that they want to lead. And it's how do you then make those changes that you need to make in order to be able to do it the way that you want to. And it's just, I think that's the scary thing, isn't it, is that change, making that transition.
Yeah, I understand. So I also see that in my coaching business, that more and more people become aware of, this is not the way they want to go on in the future, but they are not really clear what is really inside of them. And but they have this feeling, okay, there is something. And so,
Exactly.
I can understand this kind of feeling even in myself. When I was younger, before I came to Madeira, where I'm now, I always had this feeling, okay, there's something. How about you? What is your journey? Did you feel this the same? Or?
I think I've always been very sensitive, but I always believed that was not necessarily a good thing. I think when you're younger, a lot of people will say, you take it, you take things very personally, or you've taken that to heart, or so I think that's when you're conditioned to believe it's not a good thing. And it's really only, I'm in my mid-40s, but it's really only in the last couple of years when I've accepted that that's who I am, as being very sensitive and also being an empath, and that's okay. And it's actually, yes, it can be difficult at times, but it's actually a blessing, really, to be to empathise in that way with people and be able to know then how to help people. So I think it was there, but it had been very much put underground, and only for me to discover in the last 3 years, really. So I've always worked in a corporate background. I've always worked in offices. But I knew, as you say, there's always that feeling, there's that idea that there was something different destined for me. And it was really, I set up my business as a wellbeing business to start with, and that was really the catalyst for it. And the main inspiration really for me to follow that path was I met a spiritual teacher, and out of by chance, like, no, you know, nothing is by chance, is it? But I met a very powerful spiritual teacher, and she I knew I was meant to work with this lady. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just I invested a lot of money and just said, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And actually from that, I remember our very first meeting, her taking me on a, you know, meditative journey, and to reconnect with my ancestors who were Native American. And really, I just felt at home. I literally felt like I'd come home, and that's where I belonged. And that was really the start of that connection to using all of the wisdom that I have, and all of the tools and techniques that I have, and yeah, learning how to use those, but also going on that spiritual path and spiritual journey to now, which I'm still continuing. And yeah, so I continue to grow in that, and to share that now with other people as my purpose.
Can you go a little bit more into detail to understand what was your own transformation? You said, okay, you have been in the corporate world before, and then there was something like this, yeah, tipping point or synchronicity that appears, or you said it happened by chance. I don't think so, but yeah, so something happened that.
Yeah, I think actually, I think like a lot of people, it wasn't necessarily, I recognised it as a spiritual awakening, and I think I'd always been quite an anxious person, and things did make me anxious. But when I decided to leave work, I felt really lost, and I felt as though I really didn't know what to do. Although I was working on my business, it was almost like I was having this transformation at the same time and not really understanding it that well. And I think that's why I try and help people now to understand that part of the process, because it is it can be quite a scary process, because you know you start to have these ideas about, you don't know where you don't know who you are, and you don't know where you belong. And I know what it sometimes is quite common, and I certainly had it, was that I felt as though I wanted to go home, but I didn't know where home was. So you know, I would literally hear this like message to say I want to go home, but I was like, well, you know, in theory I'm at home, I'm in my house, but you know, that all began to make sense to me. So it was a lot of unraveling of understanding who I was, and certainly who I had pretended to be, and spending really the last couple of years understanding who I am, and how the different way that I perceived myself and other people perceived me wasn't a true reflection of me, and gradually being comfortable with who I am. So I think that's been a big part of the journey to transform. And I think as well, because I went from working for someone else for a very long time to working for myself, it's that understanding of when you do things on behalf of an organisation, you're really representing the organisation, but now you're representing yourself. And so when you're representing yourself, who do you want to actually represent? And that for me was one of the biggest learnings about portraying who I wanted to be. And I think in some respects I'm still learning that, because it's about being comfortable, isn't it, about who you are now.
Yeah, what I also see is that when you're in the corporate world, you somehow play a role. Yeah, you have your work, and you have to behave in a certain way, you have to dress in a certain way, so somehow you play a role inside of this company you're working in. And now when you work for yourself, you have to become more authentic. You really have to step into who you are in your essence, or however you want to call that, and becoming visible with that. So it is a position where you're mostly more vulnerable, and you show yourself, your inner part as well. And being so sensitive and being an empath, this also means, okay, I have to show myself as a whole person. Yeah.
Yes, I would completely agree with that, and I think there's no coincidence that that's the journey that I've gone on in order to help other people have that journey, because it is exactly as you say, that people are so used to playing these two different roles, and that's what's exhausting people. That's what eventually leads to stress and overwhelm, because it's that idea of pretending to be somebody that you're not, and doing that for 5 days a week is very stressful, and especially when you get to a leadership position, how do you then bring in those attributes that are that whole part of you, without people suddenly thinking, well, who's this new person, and how do you make that transition? So yeah, I think this is definitely part of the realization that a lot of people are having, is that actually I don't want to be two people, but how do I become that whole? And yeah, what are almost the mechanics of it as well, isn't it? And that's where, like you do in your role as well, I'm sure. And that's what we help people to do.
Yeah, so going a little bit deeper into this leadership role. So what I see is that often leaders are coming up with ideas, so they control what they're doing because they have the facts and they have a clear mind. But if you're a sensitive person, you also have this kind of intuition, or it comes from the gut, or however you say that in English. And so there's always like this feeling, okay, of course I have my fact there and they say something, and then I have this feeling and this intuition that this is not the right decision to make. And how was that when you have been in the corporate world? Because you said you're sensitive and empathetic.
I think for me, I always had that ability to read people. So and again, I think that was sometimes helpful and sometimes unhelpful, because I could see if people were maybe not quite portraying the same thing that they were feeling, or so for me it was a helpful attribute, but I don't think I probably fully understood it in terms of how you can use that in business. I think now it's that difference between that very masculine energy, which is led by fact and logic and assertiveness, versus the feminine energy, which is very much more using your emotions and your intuition. So a softer kind of leadership, but not less effective. In some ways it can be very much more effective because you're going with the flow of decision making, and so to understand how you can lead in this way, and the way that a lot of people they know how to do it, and they know that they can do it. And everybody's had that time when you've maybe, as you say, you've gone with your gut instinct because you know something is right, or you've gone against your gut instinct and you've suddenly realized it was the wrong decision. So it's tuning people back into that, and using your spirit, your essence, if we don't want to talk about spirit with everybody, but to get that, it's an inner knowing, isn't it? It's that inner knowing and inner guidance that is always there, but people have just forgotten. They spend there's so much time in their mind that it's very difficult to access it. You just need to reconnect with how to do it.
Yeah, I think it is also, you need to be brave if you bring out this information. Being in a corporate world, or in most of the businesses, it is kind of not allowed to come with this, oh, I have the feeling that we should do this and this because, yeah, I got this idea, my spirits led me to that. So how is it that people that are still in the corporate world can use their intuition and can also trust that what is coming through is, yeah, where does it come from and how can I trust what is coming through?
Yes, I understand that, and I think what is unfolding is this. Eventually, it will become much more acceptable to lead in this way. It is gradually introducing it, and I guess just using the language of things like your authentic self or the essence of you. If people, I mean, you and I know it comes from a place of spirit and soul. People aren't still that comfortable with it, so it's maybe just say, yeah, I think it is that trust in yourself, and clearing some of the things out of the way that have maybe made you, even though you've had that instinct and intuition, that maybe you've gone with the logical thing because you feel that was the right thing to do. You're slightly uncertain. So I think it is having the confidence and building that confidence in people to just go with the flow, and once they understand that flow, how much easier it is, you would never want to do it a different way.
I would like to go back a little bit in our conversation. So if people are not connected to their emotions, and I've read about you, of course, in the pre-interview form. So if people come from a family that is not open with emotions, or they somehow train themselves to reject emotions or not to live them, how can they go into this connection? So looking at your story, perhaps you want to share a little bit of that and tell people how was your way from being kind of isolated from your emotions and then stepping into them and understanding that they are very helpful. Can you give an overview of that?
Yeah, of course. I think that, again, with my journey, it was very much about being able to learn it, to teach it. I had a very happy childhood in lots of respects, but I did my mum, who has bipolar, which is a mental health condition, she was in and out of psychiatric care, and my father was like a successful businessman, but he was an alcoholic, so he really struggled just generally keeping on top of things. So I think my general perception of emotions was like, you do not express them, you do not say how you're feeling, even if you're feeling at the bottom of the ladder, you do not say, you do not express it. So, and I actually believe that I didn't have an emotional role model. So it wasn't as though I didn't want to necessarily say how I felt, but I didn't have anyone around me who taught me. So that just meant that all I knew was to keep them bottled up and hope that they didn't kind of come out in any way. But obviously what happens is they do, and then that's when it becomes I suppose more damaging in that I would be okay, but then I would be very un-okay, because I would have this wealth of emotions that I hadn't expressed. And it was really only through the process of reconnecting with these skills that I have and this wisdom was to understand that when we hold on to our emotions, not only do we don't feel the same way, so we're not able to feel because we've cut off ourselves from emotions, but we don't process them, so they get stuck in our minds and eventually our bodies, so that leads to physical ailments as well, and we just end up in almost a sort of numb state, because we just have this neutral state of not feeling emotions. So really what I have become attuned to is being very aware of that emotion and processing it when it arises, and obviously then having backtracked as well and cleared a lot of stuff that was there from a long time ago, and and that's what I do with women as well, is to identify. So they tend to be in a similar position, so where they've not really learned how to deal with emotion, so it doesn't, you know, their process is not a helpful one, and for them to understand themselves on an emotional level. What is it that always turns up, and how do you deal with that?
What I see that sometimes people can't even express their emotions. So they know they are feeling bad or that they're feeling good. But if you ask them, okay, if you feel bad, what is the emotion behind? Is it fear? Is it shame? Are you angry? What is the emotion? They just can't tell you, okay, I'm feeling not good. But really to go into this emotion, feeling it, and then finding the word for it or expressing it. What is it that I'm really feeling? And then understanding how this emotion came up, understanding also what was the situation before that triggered my emotion so that I feel now in this way. So, and of course, if you're not aware of your emotions, a lot of emotions are kind of stuck in your body, and they become clusters of special emotions. And I see them often also in the face of people. If someone is always angry, you can see that because there is a wrinkle in between the eyes.
Yes, that's it. Yes, and it's that realization that has made up your personality a lot of the time. So your personality is made up of those emotions and the energy that you carry with you. So but actually you have the power and ability to change that, to be a more, I think, as you've said, a more whole person. That's what you're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah. So how do you help people that are not aware of their emotions, but they fear that something is stuck in them, and you said this backtrack. How are you doing that?
I think it's very much as you described. It's getting them to describe that feeling. So to maybe come up with certainly to start with a very simple event, such as receiving an email at work, and how did that make you feel, or how did it make you feel? Where did you feel that? You must have felt that somewhere in your body. And then it's the process that I go through is to get them to then intensify that motion, and then they breathe it out and release it. So it's getting them into the practice of that. So you understand that that's the trigger for your emotion, and this is how you then release it in that moment. Going back to the things that have maybe historically been, so it's a bit more of an in-depth process, but it's to understand maybe what the initial event. So I would normally get intuitively, I will get the event that has triggered that particular emotion. So it may be that, well, you always feel as though you're being criticized by somebody, or you're being challenged by somebody, and that has gone through into your work life. But actually that probably goes back to something that was a parental event, or an event when you were younger. So it's pinpointing that event, and shifting that emotionally and energetically through a process and practice. So just almost just shifting it on a deeper level, so that then that will go permanently, and therefore they don't have the trigger to those emotions anymore. So yeah, on two different levels.
Yeah, so this is also what I see, that people often go in loops, having the same emotions and experiences again and again and again. And as soon as I realize, okay, this is what is happening in my life, also knowing, okay, I can change it if I'm aware of that. And of course, then they need help, like releasing these trapped emotions and understanding where is the starting point, and really finding the source of the problem and going from there, releasing it. This helps a lot, definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right, because you can release the surface emotion all the time, but as you say, if you don't then get to the cause of it, then you'll just kind of, those emotions will still keep coming up. So it's becoming aware of that, and everything that I do is really empowering people to then do that themselves. So once they have those tools and techniques, they can then go on to do that themselves on anything else that comes up. So it's, you know, you as you know, it's a never-ending journey, isn't it, working on yourself? So you can then be confident to do it yourself as well.
Yeah, so it's, I think, also about understanding how the frequency of the emotions that you have and the vibration you're in will resonate with certain situations that come into your life. So if you're always angry, of course, you will meet other angry people, or, you know, something will drop down. And if you are in a state that is neutral, or even more above, if you're in the frequency of love, of course, people will resonate with that. And that you can module, kind of, if you have these old radios, I don't know, in my age we had that.
Yes.
So you tune in.
Yes, to tune in, yes, that's it, yeah.
Then you get another radio station. So somehow it is like that also in our life, I think.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's to understand that your thoughts and your feelings are then what influence your emotions. So I think a lot of people are really just going around on a daily basis, just on autopilot, so that they don't really understand what's going on. But once they start to examine their thoughts, which steer their feelings and emotions, they realize they didn't really, oh, well, I don't really want to think like that. I can't, you know, I don't actually believe I've been thinking like that. It's that awareness, isn't it, of what's happening, which gives you that ability to change.
Yeah, definitely.
To change what's happening.
So understanding a little bit more about the kind of process you use in your coaching. So it is like you start with bringing up the awareness about the emotions and to hear this part. And then what would be the next step? What are you doing with your clients?
So there's actually just a step before that. So the emotions comes in the middle of the process, really, but the start of it is an energy process, which is very similar, which looks at the thoughts that they've been having, so very much around the myths and truths that they've been having, so what they've been telling themselves, and clearing them with similar processes, although slightly different ones, so that they understand, similarly on to an emotion on an energetic level, that your thoughts take you up or down, and then that takes your frequency up and down. And then it's really to understand how to be more effective with that new understanding and awareness, and being in a more higher frequency, if you like, as described. So it's more than to understand how you use that, as we've talked about, to use your things like your intuition, but also your consciousness, to be able to create consciously, and then to understand how you maintain that state of effectiveness. So how do you continue to be in flow all of the time? How do you use your intuition? How do you connect to yourself all of the time, so that you know that the guidance that you're receiving you can trust and rely on, and using some tools and mapping out what they want to achieve, but also using some processes to align their past, their present and their future self, so that they are really projecting the future that they want to have and were destined to have, rather than the one that their past self identifies with.
Yeah, so this is also a concept that we do have, or a lot of people do have, that our past will describe our future. But if you have this process in between, releasing all this blocking beliefs and the self-concepts, and sometimes even your culture that you are born in or educated. Yeah. So if you release this kind of the past, and you're at a neutral state, then you can create a totally different future. Also to understand what is the future I want to create, and not what is the family, society, whoever, my husband, who wants me to create this kind of future. So what is really what I want to manifest.
Yes, and I work more spiritually with some people than with others. So some people are more destined for that path of service, so they will have a different way of connecting with that, because it's a, you know, it's a soul purpose for them. So some of it is around connecting with that, but it is, as you describe, it is very much that you are maybe following a path that was never meant for you, but you can reconnect to a new path at any time in life. But it's to understand that your limitation has placed a certain perspective and perception on that you have the ability to change, and that is what people aren't aware of so much, I think, to educate people around that, because anybody can do it. It isn't like the only chosen few, is it? It's, you know, it's really for anybody, and that's the whole idea, is really to allow those people who want to live their unfulfilled potential without it feeling as though it's for someone else.
How do you bring out this potential women do have inside of them, and and let them understand what the soul purpose is? How are you doing that?
So it's very similar to what actually I did with my mentor, but I've taken people on meditative journeys and to meet their higher self. So once they've met that higher self, they have that connection which they can return to, and then to be given the guides there to help them to connect with their purpose. And so a lady that I've been working with, she worked in HR for 30 years, but actually she's meant to work with horses and horse equine therapy, and she'd always had a interest in working with horses, but she'd left it behind when she was very young. So it's really that thing that as soon as they connect with it, they kind of know. They actually knew it all along, but it was really just to reconnect them with that, and allow them to follow that journey themselves as well. So very much teaching them some of those spiritual practices of meditation and connecting to support and guidance.
What I also see that at this point, when people realize, okay, this is what my path could be or should be, or I would like to go into this new future, there are always obstacles. There are other feelings of fear, and as you said, the allowance. This is always like, okay, I have to allow myself to really step into this new future, because it often is a really harsh break of what they have done before, and now they are like, okay, I come out of being a leader in the business world, working in finances, for example, and then I start working with animal therapy. So this is like, what will people around tell me? What will my family say, my friends, and also I for myself? So what is the concept I do have about creating this new future for myself, and how can I allow that? Can you describe this a little bit more, how people that you have in coaching can handle that?
Yeah, and I think it's exactly that, isn't it? Because I think there is there's certainly that euphoric feeling when you understand what you're here to do, but then it's the bit after when you suddenly realize, right, okay, this is what I'm going to do. How do I do that? As you say, how are other people going to perceive that? And it is getting them to understand. Again, a lot of it is about that emotion, and particularly the emotion of fear, because what comes up very quickly is that idea of, well, I'm not good enough to do this. I've never trained in this. I don't know what this involves, where actually you're going to be divinely supported and guided on that path all the way. So it's almost getting people to understand and stand in that purpose whilst negotiating that fear and seeing what is underneath that fear. So is that fear actually about stepping into that rather than what other people will think, and talking them through that. And I think holding their hand to a certain extent to say, right, okay, you just need to get through this bit and what's underneath it, and exploring that, because it becomes a perception then. It's very much, my perception is that I can't do this, my perception is that it's too difficult, or I don't have the right skills. Or actually, you've got all the skills, you were born with all the skills that you needed to do this. So it's just getting you to be confident in that guidance.
And I see it is not only about having the skills and being born with this kind of skill set. I see also that often there's a kind of memory or old wisdom that the soul is carrying. So it is like they have this intuitive knowledge, or however you can describe it. How do you see that in your clients?
Yeah, it's the same. It's probably, as I say, the same process that I was given. Really, is that I was given a lot of wisdom with the skills that I was given. So I think when I was first told what my purpose was, and it's the same, I think, with other people, you tend to go into that logical mind as you say, well, how do I do this? What is it that what is it that I do? Where actually you're given all of that wisdom. So I am channeled the wisdom that I need now to take things forward, or I have little messages about where to look. So it's the same process that I educate people in, is that you will be drawn to what you need, and actually you're given everything that you need to be able to carry out that service and that purpose. So I guess it's more accepting what is provided and presented to you, rather than seeking out answers because you might miss something along the road if you seek too hard.
How did you open your channel? This is really interesting for me. What did you do that you can receive these messages?
Well, I have a very strong set of spiritual guides. A lot of them are the Native American ones that I first connected with. So they are very present with me a lot of the time. I connect with them every day, and actually the first times that I did this, so they normally will talk to me, but then it just kind of happened. But I think it was more during the lockdown over last summer. I think when we'd had a lot of quiet time, a lot of downtime, a lot of stillness, and it was really just a sense that I had messages to send out. So I just write what I hear. So that is sent through the guides that I have. So yeah, it's really just a sense. And that's the same with working with clients. So I will very much tune into their energy, but I may also receive messages for them, or things for them to process, and certainly in the case of the more spiritual ones, particular meditations to do with them. So this week I was working with a client, and I got the analogy of like a butterfly from a caterpillar. So I get a really nice, lovely text around that. So it's to share with that person. So that's, but in order to have that, I have to keep that connection every day, very strong connection. So it doesn't necessarily necessarily happen without that. So it's a very strong spiritual connection, which requires commitment and dedication.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So I'm clairvoyant and precognitive, so I have these insights as well. And at the beginning, I thought, oh, okay, now I'm going crazy. I see things and I get messages I can't have. And so I decided to be a participant in some remote viewing studies to make clear, okay, this is nothing I make up, but this is really now proven. I have my papers. I can say, okay, I'm really doing that. So I can understand how messages come through. For some clients, this is weird. So they think, oh, how can you know that? And I said, yeah, because I'm seeing that and I'm getting words and messages. And so, but I also see that more and more, especially women, go into this spiritual journey and understand that what they are getting, like this wisdom from their higher self or is from spiritual guides, that this is something that is really good information for them, and that they can use this and trust this for their own process, and also for if they are healers or therapists or something for their clients. So I really see that at the moment, a lot of women are waking up. How do you see that with clients? Yeah, how do you see that?
Yeah, so it's the same. I mean, I think I probably have clients that fall into two categories. Ones that really are focusing on the personal development, and then those that are doing the personal development but with the additional spiritual side to it. So certainly I am working with people who are very spiritually connected but have not used it for a very long time, and so therefore they then are they are seeing like the repetitive numbers. They get messages in their sleep, they get messages from people who have passed, so it is helping people understand, certainly if they either haven't done it for a while or this is really new to them, to help them through that process, because it can be a bit daunting when you start to get all of that information. And I know certainly for me, I always have had to just accept what's come along really, and just go, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's fine, I can, I understand that. So it's having that ability to stay calm, isn't it, when you're having these experiences, and to trust it as well, because I know as you say, you almost, you have these experiences, but then I might write something out and then I'm like, oh, okay, is that, and definitely to start with I was like, well, I don't know whether I've written that, have I written that, or but you're in a knowing knows. So it's having that ability to trust what is given to you, isn't it?
Yeah. And so how do your clients go into a leading role if they are awakened and have other skills now? Because this, of course, will change their leading role. And how are they living that when they're through your process?
So some of them will be doing a completely different path. So it will be leading more as an entrepreneur and as somebody who may serve. Others will be leading just differently, and certainly leading from a different place and a different perspective. So yeah, so it's adapting the environment, but also getting the environment to now adapt to this new leadership, because I also have channeled some wisdom on conscious leadership, which is around connecting back to people in the workplace rather than profit, and to understand yourself on a deeper level, and then to take people through that process so that you understand the unlimited potential of each individual now. And this isn't about money, this is about people. And that's the way that we've lost.
Yeah. I also see the leadership role is changing from, in the past time being in competition, now that we go into co-creation and cooperation, and that we understand, okay, this is my potential and there's someone else who has a different potential, but if we bring this all together, we can create something very special that is more than the only pieces, and that this more feminine energy is bringing this through, that we can co-create something that is very extraordinary and supportive, and these kind of humanity plus businesses that will change the world into a better place, and stop like fighting against each other because we want this client and this is mine, but this different energy that now comes into the world with this different leaders. How do you experience that?
So very much the wisdom that I've been given is about collaboration. It's about collaboration at a business level, exactly as you've described, and to bring sort of trust and loyalty and honesty. So almost like family-run businesses like they used to be, but also to share with other businesses resources, ideas, finance, as you say, to bring the best about for humanity, not just for the individual cause, and to be very transparent about where you are. So what are your struggles, what are your challenges, and then how can you help each other, rather than, as you say, being competition. So that isn't a model that will continue, and those that continue to work in that way will find it much harder to survive. It will be those that step into that collaboration which will benefit.
Yeah. So what I already heard during the interview, that you are influencing your clients in a very good and healthy way. So who did influence you? So who are the people or the books or whatever?
It changes. I think it's changed very much. As I was just going to look at my little book collection while you said that, but some people that I enjoy at different times. So Eckhart Tolle, I like listening to. I have to be in the right frame of mind, but you can get lost. I listened to a really interesting with Russell Brand. He did a podcast recently, which is very good. I also like Brené Brown. I find her work and her as an individual quite interesting. And also Wayne Dyer I dip in and out of as well. Thinking of any others at the top of my head. I did start as a meditation teacher, so a lot of my early influences were meditation teachers. So Thich Nhat Hanh as well. Those are the ones I can think off the top of my head. But it does change. It's interesting, isn't it? I spoke to someone else and they said their influences had changed as they changed, and I think that's very true. The people that you were drawn to. I think my spiritual teacher and mentor is very inspirational to me because she embodies the work of serving, and that's my aspiration, I think.
So if people now are interested and want to work with you, where can they reach out to you? Do you have a Facebook page or LinkedIn or Instagram or something? Can you share a little bit where people can find you? And
of course, yes. So I have a website page which is www.stillcalm.co.uk, and the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It's the main place that I use, and I also have a YouTube channel which has some very short but informative videos that people might find useful as well.
Okay, so I will put the links down in the description, and people can easily reach out to you there just by clicking on the links.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So last but not least, do you have any tips that you want to share with our audience and give them some inspiration now?
I think taking the time now to really reflect and take some time in stillness, but using your heart and not your mind. So I follow a lady called Elizabeth Peru. She's an astrologist, Australian astrologist, but she provides very good energetic guidance. But she is also always talking about the personality versus the soul and the spirit. So when you drop your energy down into your heart, you're coming from a place of spirit and soul, and anything else, stress and overwhelm gets reduced. So anytime you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, it's to aim to drop that energy into that space, and almost you can place both your hands over your heart space, and that automatically calms you down. And I think we can all benefit from that from one time or another. So that would be my advice at the moment.
So thank you very much for giving me and the audience so much inspiration and giving the time to speak to me. And thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, Spiritual-Changemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual-Changemakers-Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.